Here on the Made It in Music podcast with Matt Hadley of Wander Creative. Thank you so much for being here on the show with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. So excited.
You are a busy man. You've built a really incredible marketing company, gone from freelancer to building this little empire that you're building. And I'm excited to hear about that today. And I know our listeners are as well too. But can you tell us a little bit about what was the moment in time that you knew that you wanted to pursue a career in music?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny because I always, ever since I was a little kid, my parents have old VHS tapes of me just like, we had this stand-up piano and I had no idea what I was doing, but I would just be slamming down on the keys and just singing at the top of my lungs. And so music has always been a part of who I am. Growing up, right about middle school, kind of had the realization, I love guitar. I picked up a guitar for the first time, started learning, started playing, and all through middle school and high school, that was my vision. I wanted to be a touring guitarist for a alternative rock band. Quickly came to the realization that me in front of people does not usually go so well.
How did you find that out? Was there a moment you fell off stage, or what kind of happened there?
I didn't necessarily fall off stage anywhere, but we did a handful of kind of small coffee shop style type shows where we grew up in kind of a small town, and so me and a buddy of mine would do these shows, and we would invite all of our friends from school, and there was probably 40 or 50 people who would come to these things, and every single time I would be going out on stage and I would just start like drenched sweating and could not, my hands would start shaking uncontrollably, and when you're trying to play guitar, that usually doesn't work out so well. And so it was about 4 or 5 times into it, I came to the realization that this is not getting any better, and my stress level just kept getting higher and higher every single time. And so I said, there might be something else that I can still do that is music related, that I don't necessarily have to be in front of people, which can sometimes terrify me.
So it was the nerves that kind of forced you out of it, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, then as I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I might be able to still put my love and passion for music in a career situation, I was having a conversation with a friend, and he was like, there's a school in Nashville, Tennessee called Belmont that I have a buddy that just went to, and they have like this music business program to where you can learn all about everything from producing, recording. You can also learn about like front of house. You can learn about music publishing, marketing, all that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And so I started looking into it more, and still at that time didn't really fully know what I wanted to do, but there were so many options and opportunities there that I decided to go ahead and take the plunge, go to Belmont, and through that had several different passions that started to align really well. In terms of, I loved creative writing, and so some of the PR side of things kind of intrigued me. I also really enjoyed videography and photography, and so some of those creative elements also just started to develop inside me, and then one thing led to another and kind of snowballed into just kind of figuring it out and making a way.
So what was the journey? Obviously, people go to college a lot of the times not knowing what they want the end result to be. When did you kind of figure out your thing? Like, what was the process after you graduated? Did you go get an internship somewhere, or what did you do after that to figure it out?
Yeah, so in college, I did several different internships, learned a lot of really valuable things through those internships. And one of the internships was actually at a PR firm based here in the Nashville area. And I actually think that they were on one of the Made It in Music episodes with Velvet Kelm of
absolutely.
the Media Collective.
Yeah.
And so I interned with her my very last semester of college. And then when it was time for me to graduate, she was like, hey, would you actually want to come on staff full time? And so I agreed to that. I mean, it was a great opportunity. Was there for about a year or so. And then through that, realized there were aspects of it that I loved, but also, again, being an introvert and not loving putting myself out there, there were elements of being a publicist, or at the time I was a publicist assistant, that just didn't really mesh with my personality.
Sure.
When for a publicist, you always kind of have to be on. You always have to, not that you're selling your artist or your client that you're working for, but you kind of have to really be that spokesperson and just get everyone around you excited about that. And sometimes that's not my personality.
Yeah. So talk about that. Did you then leave and kind of go out on your own or hit the road, or what kind of led you into the next chapter in your career, which is, for a long time you were doing freelance work?
Yeah.
What was the journey into that?
Yeah. So after my time at the Media Collective, I went and freelanced for about a year, just doing various odd jobs, anything I could get my hands on, whether that was graphic design, doing a few photo shoots here and there, making a few like little promo videos, stuff like that. And then it was, I guess, the fall of 2012. One of my buddies shot me a text and was like, hey, I have a friend who is in a band called Sidewalk Prophets, and they're looking for someone to potentially travel with them, go on the road, just shoot content and get as much video content, photos of the shows, all that type of stuff behind the scenes. And it sounded like a great opportunity. And so I connected with one of the band guys who was kind of leading that up. And, we really clicked and kicked it off well. And then I started traveling with them, had camera in my hand pretty much all the time, just capturing whatever I could, whether that was them doing interviews, them doing, making their record, like everything.
I think that's when we met. I think we were working on a record for that band, and I think you were around with a camera.
Yeah, that's right.
The whole time.
So that was a few years back. I think on their, I think it was their Something Different album.
Yeah, and that's Sidewalk Prophets, right?
Correct.
Just for people who want to go back and look that up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how did you turn that into Wander Creative? How did you go from freelancer to starting your own company?
Yeah. So through traveling with Sidewalk, obviously my main role was managing their socials and getting content to fill their social feeds. And through that, it was kind of early in, like, now that's very common for a lot of bands to have that are full-time touring bands. They'll a lot of times have someone on the road that kind of facilitates that. At the time, it wasn't quite as common. And so we had a few different people that we were on tour with that would be like, hey, you're already out here. Like, do you mind shooting some photos for me so that I have stuff for socials? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm already out here. And so that kind of led to other people calling and needing other things. And we eventually got so busy that I was like, okay, I have to make a decision to where either I kind of go back to the freelance mentality or I stay on with Sidewalk and continue traveling with them full time. And so that's when I shifted a little bit back into the freelance. But at that point is when I kind of had the focus and the vision. I want this to be bigger than just myself. I want it to be able to actually become a business and be scalable and sustainable.
So good. So let's really drill into the core of what it is that you guys do at Wander Creative. Why do you think it's so important for artists to understand content, to understand media, to understand marketing nowadays? Why is that such a crucial facet?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people online right now, and I mean, it's interesting because we've never, in the entire history of the world, there has never been a time where people can be so connected and so aware of what is going on around them. And so really what I try to do with my clients and what at Wander Creative we try to do with everyone we work with is how can we break through that noise of, people getting emails every few minutes of the day, people getting Instagram messages. I mean, there's so many different avenues and areas that you can consume information, and it is important to be able to kind of have a pulse on each of those and know where people might be that will be interested in your music or in whatever you're trying to sell, whether that is a product, whether it's merch, whether it's concert tickets, or at the end of the day, the music itself. So really just being able to build that brand and be able to market that brand to really push through the noise and make sure people are paying attention.
And you hit on something really important. You talk about this word brand. I think a lot of artists start out getting into music literally just thinking about the music.
Right.
There's no focus whatsoever on how can I build me as a brand.
Right.
Can you talk about the difference? Because I mean, there's a massive difference.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it does start with the music, like, and that is always an important thing. Like if people who are talented are always going to be able to, and people who have really great songs are always going to be able to find their way. Now with that, there are people who might be even more talented that don't have the same level of success as someone who might not quite be as talented, but they have been able to figure out and tap into what we were just talking about, which is what is my brand. And essentially all that really at the end of the day means is what is that story about me or about my music, why I do what I do that resonates with people, and how can I basically tell that message over and over and over again until people start to think of me in that light and in that perspective.
That's good. So if an artist is concerned about that, what you just said, I'm worried that I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Am I going to burn my people out? I mean, what's your response to that?
Absolutely not. Like, what you have to realize is you might sound like a broken record to yourself, but to the rest of the world, it isn't. Not that it's falling on deaf ears, but people are in their own world. They're consumed, for lack of a better word, they're consumed with themselves. And so the more that you can position yourself to be in front of them and to be able to have that very digestible sound bite that someone can latch onto, whether that is a sound bite or whether it is an imaging or whether it is, just consistency and even, little things like font styles, like stuff like that. Those things that are going to make people remember you, even if it is just going through Instagram and then kind of in passing being like, oh yeah, there was something different about that. There was something that really stuck out from that moment.
Sure. So thinking about an up and coming artist out there, at what point should an artist just be focusing on getting really good at their craft, learning the marketing and creative side versus engaging with a company like yours? Like, is there a tipping point? Where does somebody need to be and how long can they kind of keep it going just within their own grassroots efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it's a little bit different for everyone. It is such an important thing that you do need to be able to focus time and energy on. And some artists have that desire within themselves to be able to have that time and energy that they want to pour in on that. And other artists are just like, no, I just really want to focus on the music. So it is a little bit different for everyone, depending on if it just comes naturally or if it is something that they could really care less about. That can kind of play into it. But typically what we encourage people to do is people want to come to you because of you. And if you are the one that is telling your own story, then that's going to be a lot more convincing than if we are trying to force a story onto your audience. People will really be able to see through that quickly. So what we typically try to say is really craft your voice, craft your vision, and as soon as you kind of get to that point to where you just don't have the time or energy to continue doing that, then come talk with us or someone like us and either get our perspective, our feedback, whether it is just kind of on a consulting type basis or someone who actually is fully executing campaigns and running with your socials.
Sure, man. And I love that you hit on that, because I think a lot of artists, though they may love the idea of just offloading it to somebody else, they got to realize that it still has to be them. It has to be their heart.
Right.
So how does an artist go about finding their voice? How do they, I liked how you put it like that, crafting their way of saying things. How do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like finding the voice of a song. Like if you kind of take the analogy of songwriting, every song is going to have that life. It's going to have that story, and really almost taking the same approach of, okay, if I was a song or if I was a story, what would that be? And I think in kind of unpacking that and taking a lot of those thematic elements of, all right, who am I? Why am I doing this? What about my story is intriguing, not just to me, but maybe to my friends? Having some of those conversations and even being able to bounce some of those ideas off of people, that really is going to start to unfold, and you're then going to be able to find that voicing and then continue to unpack it from there.
Man, that's a great way to put it. And you've been able to help a lot of artists do that and develop that and to pull amazing, compelling content out of them. Can you share any maybe big wins that you've experienced over the past couple of years as Wander Creative for, maybe if you want to share even a specific client story, if you're able to, anything that kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, we've had we've been really blessed to be able to work with a lot of the clients we've been able to work with. Especially we've worked with a lot of people specifically within the contemporary Christian music industry. And so, I mean, we've worked with from everybody like Toby Mac and Chris Tomlin, Francesca Battistelli. And there's been so many amazing things about those particular clients and a lot of those projects. But I think one of my favorite things is more of a up and coming client of ours that we've been working with for the past 12 months or so. It's a small band called Austin and Lindsay Adamick. So they are a husband and wife worship duo based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And what really makes them, the reason I love their story is because when they came to us, they had a very specific vision that they wanted us to help get that out, be able to effectively tell that story, kind of like we were talking about earlier. When they came to us, they were completely independent. They had some singles. They had an album they had released a few years ago. But for all intents and purposes, they were kind of hitting the refresh button on their brand, so to speak. And so we'd been working with them, and one of the things that they really wanted to do is they wanted to be intentional about connecting with their community, whether that was on socials, but specifically they wanted to find unique and creative ways to connect with their community via text messages and as well as email. So we were able to effectively do a lot of those and implement a lot of those tactics. But one of their big hopes was to be able to create something that a larger team would be interested in coming alongside them and working with them as well.
Meaning ultimately, signing to a label or something of that sort.
Yeah. And so that was the ultimate goal was they wanted management, which at the time when we very first started with them, they didn't have management. I think they had conversations and within the first month or so, they solidified a manager. But the big goal definitely was to get signed. And within, I guess it was last October, which was about month 7 or 8 of working with them, they got approached by a label and later signed to them. And so that was something that was really exciting to be able to walk alongside them kind of through all of the entire journey of just seeing them as an indie artist that were playing these shows here and there and kind of help them put all the pieces together in a way that did make it enticing for a label to want to sign them.
That's awesome. And what did that look like in specifics? You know, I mean, we talk a lot about labels looking for numbers and social proof and different things, but in their case, what were some of the wins that they maybe experienced working with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we really wanted to focus in on was making a cohesive image, so that whether it was someone looking on Facebook, that image was very distinct. They wanted something that was raw yet polished. They wanted something that felt very organic, but was still very relatable. And so we were able to work with them to get various style photos, which basically just means not like a full-on photo shoot type situation, but it still looked very polished. It looked very high-res photos, but it was a little bit more lo-fi in the sense of they were just kind of doing everyday life.
It wasn't like they were posing on a side of a cliff or something,
right.
Kind of band photo.
Exactly.
Or like
yeah. So being able to get some of that type of photos and some of those elements that really kind of branded them and gave them that distinct imaging, but then also be able to grow their, when they came to us at first, I think their Instagram following had 7,000 or 8,000, and we were able to grow that. By the time they got signed, we added another 10,000 to that just by doing various tactics at the show with their merch stand, making sure that they were doing different promos, whether that was follow us and get 10% off at either the online merch store or in person, doing different type of contests, stuff like that, as well as one of the things that we found that was really effective was doing a SMS text campaign in the show, in their live performances, where basically they had a song written that was very special to them, and they wanted to, so they wrote a devotional around that. I think it was like a 3-day devotional or something like that. And what we ended up doing was we basically created an email drip campaign, which basically just means it's all completely automated, and each day of the devotional, as soon as someone signed up for it, they would then get that day. The next day they would get day 2. The next day they would get day 3. Basically what we did to really leverage their live audiences, since they were playing so many shows, was right before the song came up, they would say something like, hey, this song is so special to us, and so we wrote a devotional around this. We would like to give that to you for free. If you text in this keyword to this number, it'll send straight to your email inbox every morning. And, that was one of the most effective ways of growing not only their text list and their email list, which when it came time to market a new merch piece or a new tour, those are always going to be the things that are really kind of that money maker, so to speak, even more so than socials. But then we were also able to put touch points of, hey, go follow us on Instagram, go follow us, be sure to check us out on Spotify and pre-save and make a playlist, all that type of stuff.
That's awesome. It's a great success story, and it's no wonder that they have gotten the industry attention that they have. And you touched on contests as a big part of that from a growth strategy point. And after the interview, we're going to do what we are calling our deeper dive segment, and we're going to talk a little more specific on how you execute those kind of contests. So if listeners are interested in hearing more about that, how they can use contests to grow their fan bases, they can just get that all at madeitmusic.com. Go to the episodes page, find this Matt Hadley episode, and it'll be linked right there for him. So let's move on to the next part. Let's say I'm an artist that comes to you, and I'm like, Matt, I've got 20 hours a month, and let's just say $800 a month that I can budget to spend on marketing my music, marketing me as an artist. What should I do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the man hours, create as much content as you can, specifically video content. There's a stat out there right now that by the end of this year, by the end of 2019, it is estimated that over 70% of online consumption is going to be video consumption. So take those man hours, whether it's, creating cover videos or just creating liner style videos, even just like very, very chill, very organic iPhone selfie style videos where you're just, saying, hey, everybody, like, what's up? I want to ask me questions. Use, Instagram has all the fun stickers now to where you can like do question and answer type things. Just create as much of that type of content that is going to really engage your audience and invite your audience to be a part of your journey. So you use the man hours, use the time to create that type of content. And then I would leverage the money, if it's $800 a month or so, use that on Facebook ads to be able to grow your numbers, to be able to grow your platform.
And specifically, when you're talking about numbers, are you saying in terms of like Facebook page likes, or what would you be kind of judging as a success metric for that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Facebook page likes are obviously going to be the very easy base foundation of that. What we internally at Wander Creative have started to really put an emphasis on is actually your engagement rate. Basically, all algorithms across all platforms, whether it is YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, even Spotify now, they are all algorithmic based platforms. And so basically what they typically look at is how are people engaging with this entity or this brand. And in our instance, it would be an artist. How are people engaging with this artist? Are they actually consuming the content that they're putting out there? Are they spending time? Are they liking it? Are they commenting on it? And we have found that the higher we can get that engagement rate, the more naturally organic stuff will start to happen, such as Facebook page likes and subscribers and all that type of stuff.
So is that accomplished through, boosting posts or creating specific ads and targeting certain fan bases, or what would you advise them to kind of focus their efforts on?
Yeah, it would be a little bit of a combination of both of those that you just mentioned. Obviously, boosted posts are going to be quick and easy ways to get more eyeballs on the content, and so there are more opportunities for people to engage with your content at that point. The other thing that we put a lot of emphasis on is actual sponsored ads and sponsored posts, which basically all that is an actual, with a boosted post, you're going to put out something and just as an organic post. And then after the fact, you might come in and say, hey, I want to throw $10-$20 at this to get more eyeballs on it. Whereas a sponsored post is something you actually build as an ad within any of the platforms, and then that is service to people either in their Facebook feed or on YouTube. It might be those ads that you see before you actually watch the music video you're wanting to watch. We found a lot of success in that type of advertisement as well.
On creating a YouTube video ad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. So let's say I'm an artist that comes to you and I say, I don't have any money. I'm broke. I'm trying to make it. I'm writing my music, putting it out. Mm-hmm. I don't have money, but I have lots of time and I want to focus on marketing. What should I do?
I would say spend as much time as you possibly can engaging with your audience, whether it is so important if someone messages you on Facebook or even if they leave a comment, be sure to reply to that, hit like, do whatever you can to make that person feel special. And then as well, go to other bands that might be like you. Like if if you are a worship artist, go on to Bethel's feed and start having conversations with people there. And obviously you don't want to be the annoying person who's like, hey, come check out my music, I'm really awesome too. But like if you start to engage in honest and authentic dialogue and say, hey, like this song has really ministered to me and speak to me, and you just start having those types of communications, you are going to organically start to get those people are like, oh, like we have community now. And at the end of the day, that's what social media is all about, is that community. And so anything you can do to build that community is going to benefit you in the long run.
Good. It's about the fan connection. So are there any new or breakthrough marketing tools or tactics or strategies that are really working for you guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like new is always a relative term. It's something to where 5 years ago, a lot of people were writing off email marketing, for instance. They were like, no, you just spend all your time on Facebook, spend all of your time on YouTube or whatever. And whereas now the trend is starting to come back to what can you own? Because obviously all of the Facebook likes that you have, Facebook owns those. Like at the end of the day, if Facebook decides to completely shift and go a different direction, well, there goes all of your followers. Whereas email list is, you own that. Like even if you're using MailChimp, for instance, and you decide to go to a different email provider, you can take that list and go. Whereas if you try to leave Facebook, they're not going to give you your likes to go to, Twitter or wherever.
It's theirs. They own it. Yeah.
So I would say, in terms of that, just really focus in on email and making sure that you have a really strong, like at the end of the day, you're running a business. So let it look like a business without feeling like a business, obviously. So making sure that you have email funnels set up to where as soon as someone signs up for your email list, they should be put into a drip campaign that they automatically get an email that's like, hey, thanks for following along. I would encourage to put merch deals in there, put a 10% off, just thanks for following, here's 10% off, whatever. So really in terms of that, it's not necessarily a new method of marketing, but it's something that so few people, and especially artists, are doing, that if you just take the time, then you're going to be set up for success.
Sure. So how important is it for artists to have somebody, let's call it boots on the ground, kind of like you used to be out with Sidewalk Prophets, you were there, you were in person all the time capturing content. Mm-hmm. How is it important for an artist to have somebody like that? It could even be a band member or a spouse or a friend, that they're maybe not necessarily even paying, but
yeah.
How important is it for them to have a person like that out with them versus working with like a remote agency, something like what you guys are?
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, you would have both. You would have someone who is constantly capturing content and just feeding it to the agency to be able to be posting and doing with it in, whether it's Instagram, email, like everything we've already been talking about. An agency is going to probably have more time and resources to be able to devote to getting that where it needs to go and using it in the most effective way. So in an ideal world, you would have both. But also in just practicality, that can get very expensive very quickly. So, I mean, if you are having to choose between one or the other, I would lean a little bit more towards probably trying to find an agency approach, because to be able to get content from various shows, a lot of venues have a staff person who is probably snapping photos, or a lot of local places might be, they might have someone on the ground shooting for a local newspaper that you can then say, hey, can I throw you 25 or $50 to be able to use a couple of those shots? And so it's a lot easier to kind of cherry pick that and be able to pull those pieces together. Whereas if you have someone who's just thinking strategically 24/7 on your behalf, I think that's probably going to help you in the long term.
Yeah. So let's shift focus and talk a little bit about what if there's somebody in the audience listening and they're interested in getting into the business side of the music. Maybe they want to work in music marketing. Maybe they ultimately want to work for an agency. What would be a great kind of course of action for them? Where should they start in terms of getting their feet wet into it and building a foundation for that to actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the same mentality of even doing what I suggested on the online presence of making sure you're building that community online and engaging and building relationships. But now I'm going to say the same thing, but just in real life. Be as present as you can be at whether it's going to shows of bands that might be similar to you and striking up a conversation with the front of house guy, or trying to meet as many people as you possibly can, whether that is if you're in college, doing as many internships as you can. There's so many great opportunities. Don't be afraid to email people and try to strike up a conversation, or say, hey, can I go get coffee with you to pick your brain? Like, there are most of the people I've met in this industry that has helped me along the way are not too good, so to speak, to take time out of their day. Like,
absolutely. And that's a big reason of why we do what we do. So even for our people listening, I'm going to piggyback on what you just said and put that out there that, and you may have this similar type of opportunities, but we have an ongoing internship and apprenticeship program here at Full Circle Music, where we are constantly looking for people who want to learn the business, who want to come and get into music marketing, who want to get into learning how record labels run and how publishing companies run. So, man, I'll just put it out there on this episode that if people are interested in that, they can just go ahead and shoot an email to support@fullcirclemusic.com. And I'm sure that you always have, people that they're coming up under you as well too, I would assume.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, same with us. We have internship opportunities, and I feel like I'm always willing to, if someone shoots an email, it might take me a few days, but I try to get back to them, and I try to say, hey, keep it up. The same thing with Wander. Our email is info@wandercreative.com, and we have internship opportunities. And even if you just have questions, we're willing to answer as best as we can.
That is awesome. Okay, we are going to dive into our last part of the interview, which we are calling the lightning round.
Lightning round.
Let's talk about the best advice ever given to you. What is that?
Best advice ever given to me: to be persistent, but not annoying.
I love it. Well stated. Top goal for this next year?
Top goal for this next year. We, as a company, we've been trying to, obviously music is our main focus and that's where we want to be. But we do also have a goal to broaden into some other areas, specifically the film world. And so to be, one of our top goals is probably to work a film project.
Okay. First concert you ever went to?
Garth Brooks.
All right.
I grew up in Texas, so. I
love it. Still rocking it. Top trait in the successful artists that you work with?
The top trait, I don't know exactly if this is a trait or not, but they know who they are and they're not afraid of being who they are.
That's good. So maybe self-awareness, something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
And then lastly, last question of the lightning round, favorite marketing tool?
Favorite marketing tool? I would probably say Facebook Ads Manager, just because that is where I spend a lot of my day.
That is awesome. Well, how can people connect with you? Can they connect with you on socials or website? How can people find Wander Creative?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a website. It's just wandercreative.com. And that's WANDER, as in not all who wander are lost, or I'm wandering around, all that. We also have, all of the socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all of it is literally Wander Creative.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time here. And for those who are interested, we are going to do a quick deep dive into how you use contests to build fan bases. The listeners can find that at madeitinmusic.com. Go to the episodes, and it's in the show notes there. So, Matt Hadley, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for hanging out on this YouTube video with us. In case you didn't know, this is from the Made It in Music podcast, Season 2. We have a ton of awesome guests that come on the show, all music business professionals, to share their knowledge and experience with you. So if you want to subscribe to not miss any future episodes, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and you'll be notified about all of them. And in case you didn't know, we do a deep dive for every episode where we go really in depth on a certain topic from each podcast episode. So sign up right here to get free unlimited access to all of those deep dives from our podcast. And if you want to watch another Made It in Music podcast video, click here.